Alright, so now I want to talk a little bit about how I hook these synths up to my computer for producing music. When I'm working on a lot of different songs and I want to use a lot of different sounds, there's really no way getting around actually recording the sound from the synths into audio. You would hook up the output, the audio output from the synth into an input on your sound card and record it that way. Technically, I guess you could just record your parts live with the synths you're going to use, but realistically, you know, we want the ability to mess with the parts and to transpose and quantize and do all of those things, right? So we need to get into the computer via MIDI somehow as well. And what we also want is the ability to sit here and play around on these keyboards. There's different ways you can do this, but the way I've done it is as follows. I have the MIDI going from the Nautilus into the computer, and then going back into the Nautilus on the same channel. So what you do in that case is that you use something that's called local off, which is something that a lot of MIDI controlled keyboards have, which is basically turning off whatever sound was triggered by you pressing the keys on the keyboard, and only using the incoming MIDI signal for generating the sound. That's how we not get like a double trigger when we play. For the prologue, on the other hand, I've done something a little bit differently, because I'm not using any local off on this one, because it doesn't have any. So I'm not using the MIDI out. I'm only using the MIDI in on the prologue. So for the prologue, actually, what I first do is I sketch out the parts, and then I actually record them, having the MIDI controller control the prologue. So here we have a song that is, among other things, utilizing two sounds from the Korg prologue, and the track sounds like this. And I've recorded these two sounds into audio, but I also have their corresponding MIDI files here, so I'm going to show you how I went about doing this. What I then do is that I play that part through the whole song. And I'm using the cutoff filter and other stuff that I want to tweak throughout the whole song to get movement. And personally, I like these long evolving movements, because I think that kind of like it's nice to have this subtle thing where you don't really hear everything changing at the same time. But you know, I can also appreciate that sometimes you want to do a more sort of Ableton Live style, more block-based way of where you have things really coming in and more sharply, so it's not like this sort of fade type of thing. But I would still argue that even if you have that production style, making subtle shifts in such a thing as cutoff is still really useful to breathe life into the track and sort of make things dynamic. The other sound used from the prologue sounds like this. And it's the same thing there. I recorded the whole part throughout the song using the cutoff. So this sound has a bit of a roll to it. So it's not all coming in at the same time. So it's actually kind of like this. And in the case of more fluid parts like that, I think it's really nice to have those played for a longer duration, so that you have all these little variations, because every time I do that, both the timing and the velocity are going to be slightly different. And I think that goes even for when you play straight stuff. Even if you want to quantize it, you can still utilize this by adding variations. I mean, there's in Logic Pro, there's a humanize command, which sort of adds these subtle shifts in, and it can do a lot for your track if you do that. So in this case, what I did was I recorded this quite a long pass of this thing, and that way keeping some of the sort of vibe and dynamics in the track, and sort of have this, again, these little subtle shifts that make the track finally a bit more lively and organic. And I think using velocity and timing variations to your advantage is actually a really can be really useful to have just a nice sounding track, and especially if you're, as in the case of this, you're working with live elements, as in like a real piano and a real bass player and some percussion that is not played exactly to every beat, and the final result is hopefully something that you can dig with using those methods. It helps to have a bass player to help you out as well.